Meeting to order. If you would, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Mayor Klein.
Here. Yes.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Alderman Fahy. Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Bennett.
Here.
Alderman Eidman. Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Prince.
Here.
Alderman Steiger.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. This time we'll look for approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? No presentations or awards tonight, so we'll skip down to, we have a personal appearance. Ashley Kreider is going to present the annual report for the St. Genevieve Housing Authority.
Hello. I feel like I should know everything I need to say, but January was a long time ago last year. As of right now, I've got my Board of Commissioners has been fulfilled. They've been full for my entire 2024 calendar year. I have two maintenance guys that have been with me since 2023. The housing mission is to ensure a safe, decent, and affordable housing for all eligible families and individuals. And that is what I take a lot of pride in striving to make sure we do. Some of our goals is to continue to improve the living conditions for our low, very low, and extremely low income individuals. Housing statistics, I do not have any changes with any of the dwellings. I still have 22 bedrooms and 10 3-bedrooms. In total of my residents, I have 90, and then 50 of the 90 are minors. So we are a big family organization. My rental statistics, we applied for a flat rate exception through HUD last year. That was approved in 2023, so that is good for 2 years. And that has really been a key essential for some of our families down there. At the end of December 2024, all 30 units were occupied, and we have maintained over a 90% occupancy rate this entire time. Waitlist management. As of January 1st, 2024, I had 20 families on my wait list, and I pretty well maintain at least 20 families on the wait list all year long. I have approved 7 new families. 2 of the families were on the extremely low income limit based on HUD standards. Housing inspections, nothing is new to report there. We are still qualified as a high performer. Our next inspection is 2025. So at some point this year, they have made a change from REACT to Inspire. We're all pretty new with it, with the HUD standards. So we're all in for a surprise. Let's see. Just some housing information. Our total grant for 2024 was $96,369. During this grant, I plan to continue to do more roof updates as we were affected by some of the hail. We have a lot of effects of the ice damage that we recently received. So typically every year, my goal is to at least get 3 new roofs put on. With all this damage that we have received, I'm hoping to do 6 to 8 for these funds, just because they are pretty significant, and I want to get that completed. And then other than the roofs, we're going to continue to keep evaluating AC units and some floors and possibly some furnaces if funds allow. A lot of our furnaces and water heaters are all at that mark where they're like 20 to 30 years old. So it's time to update. And other than that, the only other thing that I did not include in this report is I did want to mention I have a kids program that I started I think it was about 2 months after I was started here in 2023. I reach out to some nonprofit organizations and I reach out and say, hey, this is what I do. Would you guys be interested in funding anything? If you'd like to come and speak to our kids. It's a big goal of mine for our low income families to see the bigger goals, because it's very important that they see the bigger picture. And I want them to have the goals of who they want to be when they grow up, whether it's law enforcement, a firefighter, a lawyer, and one of my favorite things that I've done this past year was a career day. And so the kids program has just been a great asset down there. Next year, I will include a report on that. We do have two donors that have helped us keep that program going, and it's been pretty successful so far. So does anybody have any questions? No?
Do you have any plans for any new housing, building any new?
As of right now, it's called a fair cloth. St. Genevieve is at their limit for income-based housing. So me and another board member did look into it a little bit. So pretty much how it works is, I think it was like based in the 60s, based on our population, we're allowed X amount of income-based facilities and units. We are at our maximum. So we can, there in our surrounding counties, please don't mark my word on this. I believe like if a surrounding county has not used all of theirs, we can, but it can get very wishy-washy on it. So still looking into it. But as far as I'm aware, we are at our maximum amount per the fair cloth. Any other questions? And that's all I have to.
I got one more question. Your wait list, you said you had about 20 families on your wait list.
Yes,
How does
sir.
that compare to years past?
It's been pretty consistent.
Okay.
So a lot of our wait list, I give our families 3 times to remain on the wait list after I have an open unit. That a lot of times they've just moved or they're not financially stable enough. They don't have the resources. So 3 times I'll ask them, hey, I have a unit coming available. Are you interested? And a lot of times if I didn't have some kind of a limit on it, they would stay on it and our wait list would be much larger. So even years past, it's remained around, I think I looked at 2022 and 2023, and it's been around 20, give or take.
So if they go off, they have to reapply to get back on.
No, they don't have to wait at all. So it's
After 3 attempts, they go off the wait list, so they'd have to reapply, I guess.
correct. Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Next up, we will move on to the city administrator's report.
You got a report at your seat, so I'll go over a couple of the items. Item 2, the city government website is live at stgenevieve.gov. You can check it out, see anything that needs to be added, changed, or whatever, let me know. Along with that, through Apogee, who is hosting the site for us, you can also download an app on your phone or on your tablet, however you want to do that. It's available through the website if you go there or through Apple Store or Google Play, and you can get that. And item 4, the Prop S bond issue is being prepared by Gilmore and Bell with McGliney and Company. We're looking at March 13th to be here to approve it. It'll go out before that and then be due on the 13th. It'll be like we did with the lease purchase. They'll be here to have the board approve it at the rate that is submitted. If it meets what we want, then we can approve it that night. If not, then you reject it. But that will be coming up. And then the money would be probably deposited in April, May for use, which is about the time we'll be starting on the streets.
So that happens that quick.
Yeah.
Cochran is the one doing the plans for street or Taylor?
Cochran. Taylor's doing the engineering for the cemetery.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
And you haven't got those plans yet back from Cochran?
Not yet. I'm hoping for today, but didn't show up, so I'll check and see if they show up maybe tomorrow.
Happy, I did have a quick question on the website. So Tuesday, I was poking around on that. The link for the old website, that domain name, the stgenevieve.org, I believe, right?
Mhm.
Is that going to reroute to the new website? So if somebody were to type that in, would it take them, would that reroute to the new one? Because on Tuesday it didn't. It would still take you to the old website.
Right. For time it did, but there's some confusion as to where stgenevieve.org is and who's controlling it. So last I knew it was / that has the access to that web domain. And I asked CBSI to turn off the old website and then, send the new website to our new address. I'm not sure how long that would last.
Okay.
But I was told that it isn't working anymore, so.
As of an hour ago, you will get an error page.
Okay, good.
If you go to .org,
If you go to .org, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna get that switched over. We took us a day just to get the.
Yeah, I just noticed that Tuesday when I just wondered if eventually it would reroute to the new one.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's all I have.
so on the new website and the app, it has a notification feature on that as well.
It does only by email
Okay.
that goes, we can push stuff to the app itself, which it has a live feed of all of our Facebook and all of our news stories that pop up there. So anything that's updated would be on the home screen that's on the app.
But that's not tied in with our broadcast text alert system. Okay.
No, it's separate. Most of the time, we're posting on Facebook, so it would update it automatically that way, because it's part of that. But the Genesis part is not on there.
Happy on number 5 and stuff. How many plots do we have left there?
I think we figured 127.
Any idea of how quick those are?
We're kind of getting to the point of we had a rush of people coming in, and we wanted to make sure that we have enough as we work on. We're not going to do the whole area, but I want to get it all engineered. But we were thinking we could be out in about 5 years. Is that about right? Yeah, because you figure about 20 plots a year.
Because it's going to take up a substantial amount of fill from somewhere
Yes.
to bring that up and stuff. And I was just kind of curious how much of a priority, this needs to be and stuff.
Well, the thought on this was there may be a lot of fill available here soon with a subdivision that goes in, and if there's a lot of dirt fill, that would be perfect for that area and would be close for dropping it off if we know what we need. So that's why one reason we want to get this done.
Can we go back one more time to the Genesis, the text alert system? Can you just kind of give viewers an update on how they can sign up for that so they can get the alerts and kind of what we've invested in with our text alert system?
So, and text also covers emails and phone calls. So if people don't use their cell phone that way, or they don't use texting, or they don't use the emails, they don't have it set up, then you can get a phone call from the city to say that there's this issue. So it's online. It's through the website. There is a link. There's a top row of buttons that has emergency alerts. Somebody can click on that. It'll take them to the website. If somebody needs for us to do that for them, they would have to call and talk to staff, but they can do that up front at our main phone number. And we can sign them up and get them in the system. It's fairly easy. It doesn't even really ask for your name. It doesn't require names, but it does require at least a phone number or email, and we can put it on there. So once it's on that system, we then set it up as to who we want it to. We have different groups that we put people into. So the generic one for St. Genevieve is St. Genevieve residents. We then include that as St. Genevieve residents because we have other groups that we also send text to have set up on the system. And then if it depends on what the emergency or the advisory is, such as with St. Jude, it was an advisory of a boil water condition because of some low pressure in the system. It wasn't that there was no pressure. So no pressure would require an order. With just the low pressure, it's an advisory. Might want to boil your water. Not required. It's not mandated. It may be in your best interest, but it's not mandated. So in that case, we just notified those that were in that subdivision. We can geolocate. We don't send it system-wide. If it was something that was major, then we would send it system-wide. Any of the weather alerts, you sign up for those, and that's up to the individuals. Then you get the weather alerts from the National Weather Service. We don't generate those. We'll generate street closings, boil water issues, any other street issue. I mean, it would have to be something local that we generate. It's not the weather stuff. So they can, we had it in the newspaper. There's a QR code that we got online, or you can go directly through the button and get there. We just haven't done another push to get people signed up. Because we're at 102 people now.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Who are administrators on that? Who can post on our Genesis?
We've got like 7 or 8 administrators that can do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Maybe do another push, I guess, maybe to get the word out that people can sign up for that.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem that I think we're seeing is where do we put it? Where do we put that information? Because, I mean, if
We put it on the water bill?
we can, but there's not, we can't put the QR code in there.
Yeah.
We can just put like the generic information, but we can't write enough information on there to really spell out what you're looking at. We'd have to do we'd have to do a separate mailer. That may be the option. I'm done now.
Thanks.
Sure.
I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Happy. We will move along to staff reports tonight. First up, we have Police Chief Daniel Howlett.
I'm slowly getting my voice back, so everybody should have a copy. I gave the December's numbers, and then following that is the yearly numbers. Really, the main thing is since I took over last month, we had 3 openings. We've since filled 2 of them, and actually both those officers are actually working now. So, and then for the yearly, I just went through and kind of found what all we had. And then also attached with that is a breakdown of all the calls through dispatch. That's basically all I got.
That's kind of new, that St. Francis 911 center, that report is new for us, 'cause I'm sure you guys probably know, but that's kind of interesting to see, so thank you.
I attach that to every single one of mine.
Yeah,
Apparently not.
well, your predecessor did not, so I will not,
Okay.
I will not hold you to that, but your predecessor did not.
Back.
Any questions for Chief? Thank you.
Or he gave us a year.
And then next up tonight, we've got Corey Litteris from Alliance Water.
Good evening. You guys got a copy of the report in front of you. A few things on the water treatment plant heater, the parts did come in, so it is up and running. I don't think I did put it in there, but we're doing a remodel down there at the street department. All the drop ceiling and lighting is completed now. And we're gonna move on to the floor, and the trim will be next, and then that'll be complete. I know Mike and Bob have seen it kind of preliminary, but tomorrow downtown lights will be all back to white. The weather hasn't been real cooperative on getting them swapped out, so they will be swapped back tomorrow. And then just a lot of frozen meters right now. It's warming up, but that ground is, cold's penetrated, so I think we've had 6 or 7 yesterday and a couple more today. So anybody calls about no water, it's probably frozen meters. Get a hold of us so we can get it taken care of.
Corey, an update on the fire hydrants, the pressure testing and the painting, the work numbers that are associated with those?
Yes, that will be, flushing will take place in spring. Ken Steiger and I sat down after our department head meeting last Wednesday. Like he has a list of our last flushing stuff. We do need to get him the static pressure he is lacking. So come springtime, all the painting will be done and all the pressures and will be to Ken.
Very good, and we're tracking it by work order number.
That'll be something. I'll probably generate that work order myself and then
Awesome.
pass it on to you guys.
Awesome, thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
One of the things, Corey, I would like to hopefully see done a little more priority in the spring, and that is patching. It seems like we kind of get put off and stuff until the latter part of the year, but I'd hope maybe you could get some things in place.
Couldn't agree more. Yes, it will take place. Yes. And we will be crack filling as well. You guys purchased a machine.
Right.
So that will be as soon as it warms up. I know there's a list of streets I've talked about the newer ones that are going to be priority, and then we'll move on to the older ones, but preserve them best we can.
So you got the crack filler all up and ready to go.
Yes, sir. It's actually sitting outside in the PD garage. Once we get it going, so I can let you guys know if you guys want to come watch a demo or something while we do it.
Thanks for including the snow reports. Kind of interesting to see the amount of hours, overtime hours, and tons of salt. So that's helpful to be able to tell that to some of the residents
Yes,
what you guys are doing out there.
yeah, that's it. And I didn't include some of the regular work hours during the week. So, but yeah, anytime that happens, I'll do a report on that.
How much salt you got left?
We got plenty. We had a couple loads replenished already. So yeah, we're good.
Are you still planning on moving the salt storage
Yes.
while it's down?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we'll wait till we get through winter for sure, and then we'll be in the middle of it, but yeah.
I know this was kind of an unusual storm in its longevity and severity and stuff, but how's this going to affect, normal hours budgeted for?
We'll be within budget. Yeah, that's number we gave you. It'll be good.
Yeah, it's all the reports I got. I mean, it was a tough storm and everybody seemed happy. I didn't get one call.
We're good, yeah.
Right.
So we did what we could. So, and with that ice falling first, and we got the rubber blades, it's hard to peel some of that stuff up. So
Right.
I had to backhoe out on the streets I could. There's only a handful with the manholes and valve cans up. If so, you'd be ripping them all out. So that'd be a different story if that wasn't a factor.
It's hard to get the jump ahead on it,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Anything else? Thank you again for all the work that you and your crew put in for the storm. And
Appreciate it. I'll let you know.
notice you guys did a great job. We knew how hard you guys were working. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Corey. At this time, we will open up the floor for public comment. No public comment tonight. We will move on to tonight's consent agenda.
Mayor, I've got one question on the treasury reports inside there.
Yep.
And I just maybe if I could ask Happy to maybe get an answer. Last year, we didn't collect any donations at the Welcome Center. This year, we collected like $3,300. I noticed that on there for December. And then sales, last year they had $100 in sales. Miscellaneous receipts at $100. And then this year we had $7,600 in miscellaneous receipts. I'm just curious what anomaly that was.
So that's part of the different activities that we've had go on. We've had grants that have come in. So the grant payments and then put in the different categories that we hadn't been using the last few years. Because, yeah, we don't really have anything for sale. And the other would be, we just try to classify where to put that. I'm not sure exactly which.
The donations for the Welcome Center, does that stay in the tourism budget then? Is that something Aaron can use for?
So the donations come from the National Park Service, and that's part of what what we collect throughout the year as part of our shared agreement with them. So that's actually National Park Service money that we collect. So that was the last what I put in for it too. And we have other small items that might go in there, but that's mostly National Park Service.
Thanks.
Can we have some discussion about the resolution 2025-17? Is this the same property that we discussed previously with a couple of people who came to a work session?
This is a portion of that property, yes.
Okay. There was some concern raised about the proposal for the Life Center, and that there were, I guess, a comment was made that, we were hoping to get a
taxing entity in there, or on that property, or reserve that for that purpose. I think that we would owe it to them to at least have some explanation, you know, that this is a different property, while the same property, a different side of the property, and not necessarily apples to apples, or if there's still consideration for their proposal. I think that we probably owe them some kind of a response.
Yeah, I think there was a push in this case for the application on that to go in for the Mac Tech Center.
Right.
I can't speak for the full board on what their decision was. The feeling was that this was the benefit to the community that this brings is very important, and that this took priority. So it's 5 to 7 acres of 14, of which 11 are usable. And this sits on the west side of the property, whereas the Independent Center looked at the west side of the property next to American Custard. So we would still probably have some property left that they were looking at. But we didn't partition it off. We haven't split the property, but we are dedicating at least that section for MAC to bring in the school. We just felt, I think the board felt that what I got from that was that at this point, it was more important to concentrate on that for that property as being a benefit for the community. Yes, we were looking for.
I mean, there was no discussion about the Independent Center when we had the work session to discuss MAC. So I don't know that was explicitly mentioned as far as, you know, one project being more important than the other project. I mean, I certainly think that the Independent Center's project has merit, has value also. So, I mean, I personally would not be comfortable saying that I feel like the other project is more important or has a higher priority than a previous one. You know, if it's, I would like to get some feel from the board if there would still be interest, if they are still interested in partitioning that off or having that. I know that there was a desire to have that as a taxing entity in there, the ability to do that, but you know, if we're going to make an exception for somebody, I think that we should be willing to make an exception for both.
I don't recall being a taxing entity being, I mean, obviously.
There was.
I mean, sure, that probably came up, but I don't think that was ultimately the decision or the rationale behind the decision. I think it was in regards to being that we don't have much land holding currently. I think the board wanted to take a wait and see approach to see if there was a better fit with the limited amount of land that we had that might be a better service to the community and might further progress in other capacities. It doesn't necessarily have to be a taxing entity, but could further, whether it's retail, whether it's some type of, you know, it could be a use tax kind of situation where it's more commercial in that regard. I mean, that was the temperature, I think, of the board at that time. But I don't know that we've had but the one discussion about it.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but was that discussion, I don't think I was there for that work session. Was that an open session or closed session?
Closed session.
Yeah, you need to stop talking about your closed session discussions.
Happy you did get clarification for the MacTech on what area they were looking for. Because there seemed to be a question about which area they were looking for.
It was
You
in
can
the,
ask them for their overhead view of that, of what they had looked at,
right,
and you got that.
yeah.
And that has not been decided. Sorry, Mark.
I'm sorry, I keep interrupting, I don't want to. But I think if you're going to have a lengthy discussion about the resolution, I think somebody should move to remove that from the consent agenda and have as a separate discussion item so you can proceed with the consent agenda without that item, then you can have more of a discussion and a vote on that separately, would be my suggestion this time.
I would make that motion to remove resolution 2025-17 to discuss further.
I'd need,
It's just a
before we do that, I mean, there's kind of a timing issue here.
It's still on the agenda.
Still on the agenda.
This is just to.
Just from the consent agenda.
Just to pull it out of there.
Because generally, the consent agenda is, it's items that before the meeting, everybody's generally agreed, this is just, you need to approve like formality, the minutes, that those types of things that are on the consent agenda, because it's just everybody approves it by consent. And so the motion is just to remove this item from the consent agenda, and then it's by default a separate discussion item.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second to remove resolution 2025-17, and remove it from the consent agenda. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to approve new consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the amended consent agenda and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. Now what's on your agenda is resolution 2025-17,
Okay.
if you want to discuss any further.
So we can continue discussion at this time on resolution 2025-17, which is authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Mineral Area College to lease 5 to 7 acres of land on Progress Parkway.
And can I ask this question? I mean, this is just a resolution of an intent.
Correct.
To enter into an agreement at a later date, which would still have to be approved by the board, because this is not an actual agreement. This is just correct. Assuming that the terms would be acceptable at a later board meeting, then you would approve the actual agreement, correct? Okay.
This was,
I'm not trying to minimize it. I just want to make sure that that's the understanding, because there is no agreement before the board at this time.
correct. This was solely for their grant application paperwork, was to the city to, this was more or less in lieu of our letter of support.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so we're open for discussion on 2025, resolution 2025-17. I'd like to continue it.
I guess at the risk of.
What? I don't mean those.
No. I mean, in light of that, I mean, I would like to recommend that we bring that up for another work session and and at least have some resolution to the independent center's request in addition to this. I'm certainly not trying to put the brakes on this resolution and the proceeding. I just feel, the impression that I got from some of them was that they felt like we disregarded them, and this is not too dissimilar a project.
Yeah,
So-
and I have not heard that, so, but I also think that what they brought to us was just
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt you again. I don't know what discussions you had in open session, what discussions you had in closed session. I think a lot of it probably was in closed session, so if it was in closed session, do not discuss any of the details that were discussed in closed session in this open session. So I don't know the answer to that. I'm just interrupting,
So my request is just that we move this to another work session at some point in time to finish that discussion.
so do you not want to vote on this?
No, not this.
But just to talk about the property?
Correct.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the resolution. I guess I'd
Second.
So I have a motion and a second for the approval of resolution 2025-17. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Thank you for the discussion on that. We will move to old business. We have a second reading of bill number 4654. This is an ordinance of the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a farm lease agreement with Kurt's Farms LLC for an agricultural operation on city-managed property adjacent to the urban design levy.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call?
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yeah.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4654 now becomes ordinance 4576.
Thank you. We'll have a second reading of bill number 4655. This is an ordinance amending the City of St. Genevieve Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 203, Fire Prevention and Protection, Article 1, Fire Department, Section 203.010, created commanding officer as set forth below.
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderman Steiger,
Yes.
Alderman Prince,
No.
Alderman Rainey,
Yes.
Alderman Eidman,
Yes.
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
Alderman Donovan,
Yes.
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. 6 yes, 1 no, 1 absent. Bill number 4655 now becomes ordinance 4577.
Thank you. Take us to another second reading. This is for bill number 4656. This is an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, amending the personnel manual as set forth below.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Steiger,
Yes.
Alderman Prince,
Yes.
Alderman Rainey,
Yes.
Alderman Eidman,
Yes.
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4656 now becomes ordinance 4578.
Thank you. And lastly, in old business, we have a second reading of bill number 4657. This is an ordinance approving a special use permit for Patrick Fahey Main Street Inn LLC that will allow the operation of an RV park business at 198 Front Street and other property.
Discussion.
Yes.
Just one, I know that the original plan showed 20 slots, but they're only opening with 10. And I couldn't figure out when or if they could ever do those other 10. And I don't even know if I care if they do the other 10, but I think it only started with 10, and I was just wondering what happens to the other 10 that they had originally proposed.
I think they were looking to see how successful it is, and then they have expansion.
Do they need permission to do those? That special use permit need to be amended to add in those other 10? Or how does that work? Do you know how that works?
So we got it where it's set up for the full amount, right? Yeah. It's what they've submitted as their,
So
as their RV park.
we're authorizing 20, then. They might only start with 10, but they are authorized.
Right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Dobbs. Yes. Alderman Donovan,
Yes.
Alderman Bennett,
Yes.
Alderman Eidman, Alderman Rainey,
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4657 now becomes ordinance 4579.
Thank you. Move to some new business. Resolution 2025-18. This is a resolution reappointing Whitney Tucker to the St. Genevieve Heritage Commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 2025-19. This is a resolution reappointing Mark Buckite to the St. Genevieve Heritage Commission.
Motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
Second, whatever.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 2025-20. This is a resolution appointing Kenny Steiger to the position of paid part-time fire chief for the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri.
Motion to approve.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Move on to a first reading of bill number 4658. This is an ordinance to authorize the city administrator to enter into an agreement to accept a donation of real estate from St. Genevieve Day of Celebration, a nonprofit corporation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that will conclude our business on the agenda. Anything else to discuss at this time? All right. With that, we will adjourn. Tonight's work session to order. At this time, we will look for approval of the amended agenda tonight. You should have that at your seats.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Work session, agenda item number 1, this is regarding general fund changes, if the fire district is successful in their approval.
The question is on the tax burden for residents. Does the city want to offset that by reducing the amount of Prop P that would offset what the general fund budget is for the fire department?
Mayor, on Tuesday, the Fire District Committee, Planning Committee, went and had a hearing at the county courthouse, and they were approved. City Fire District and the County Fire District on the upcoming April election. So the committee has gotten everything that they need to do to qualify and get it, and a judge and granted the motion to put it on the ballot. So
Great news.
it will be on the ballot in April.
Wonderful. That's great.
So in 2024, our expenditures in the fire department out of the general fund were $191,263.
What was that number?
191,263.
That doesn't count the rest of their budget revenue, which should stay the same, the fire tags and is there any other sources of revenue that go into?
No, the fire tags are a separate, separate fund, so that
And that-
stays in that. Yeah, and that won't be, we won't charge that anymore.
Right, that'll go away.
How much does the Prop P generate?
It generated this last year $207,000. And so we budgeted for the, in our budget overview.
So if we repeal Prop P, do we have the funding to maintain the level of salary and equipment that the department has now?
What,
I mean, we would if it
Yes.
passes with the $191,000 not going out to the fire department.
I wouldn't rescind Prop P, I would reduce Prop P. And whatever our general fund amount is on average, look at that. But I wouldn't eliminate it fully because I don't think we'd be missing about $20,000, which does help pay for the current salaries for the police department.
How much of a reduction are you asking for?
I'm not asking for any.
How much are you proposing?
I was asked to bring this up for discussion. And I think it's because the idea is we want to be good neighbors and help our neighbors with their potential tax increase with the new fire district, which would be on the property tax as well as like this property and real estate.
So is the request to amend this prior to the April election so that it will offset?
No, I wouldn't do this because they won't bump into this until December when we all pay our property taxes. So it would be the same in August for us. We would then have to decide what we want to reduce Prop P to. So at this point, it's 1.00%. I can't remember what the 0.1 or something. So we would reduce that to whatever that equivalent amount that might be $20,000, say, that we would generate from it to offset the loss that we would have, but the amount we would not be spending in the fire department.
Well, I could talk about the legal side of it a little bit. So if the fire district is created and those expenditures and services are then handled by the fire district, then the question is, at that point, you could do a voluntary rollback, a partial rollback of the Prop P real estate tax. You can't obviously do that now because the voters haven't approved anything. But if the intent was clear, then perhaps you could express that intent in a resolution, which would be non-binding. But you could make it known that that is the intended plan of the city, or you could leave the tax the way it is, or you could just have a wait and see attitude towards it. But I think that's essentially what you're talking about. Okay, what is our plan as a city going forward with regard to that tax? Because that tax authorized is fairly broad language, so you could use it for other purposes. But one of the purposes was for fire services. And so if you're not providing the fire services, perhaps the board would want to consider reducing that tax, because necessarily by creating the fire districts, they would have to assess a tax to provide those services. Now, it's going to take them a little bit of time after they impose the tax to be up and running. So that has to be taken into consideration. But you wouldn't be making a decision about that until you're setting your levy. So if you remember, every late summer, fall, you're setting your levy for the next year. And so that's when the decision is going to be made, or maybe the following year, depending on how the election and the timing of the collection of their taxes, which I would assume will be the following year. But so that's the legal side of it, and then you all decide what, if anything, you want to do. Right?
I think one of the things is the new fire district is going to be charging a tax, a property tax assessed on there. So if the city keeps our current tax rate, you're double taxing your citizens for a fire department that you no longer provide in the city. So myself, when I go to the poll in April, I won't vote for the fire district if the city is going to keep the same amount of taxes. And we're also going to create a fire district that's also setting a new tax levy for themselves. So if the city will say, we will give up that amount that we're taxing our city residents so that the fire district can be created, I think it's an even swap and a logical decision. Why wouldn't I want the fire district then to be better funded through all the sources that are out in their district compared to the way it is now? So this rolling back this $191,000 that we fund now in the fire department, I think that money needs to be reduced for city residents and what they're being taxed now, because they're going to get taxed that more when they have a fire district. So it's just equalizing or eliminating what we have in the city going forward, and then the fire district will pick that back up. So it'll just be kind of a wash what citizens are being charged. If that makes sense, if I'm explaining myself.
When we passed Prop P, I know you were very vocal about the Prop P money being for the police department, because they're the ones that went out and campaigned for it on their own time. Then our attorney said that you can't limit it just to the police department. You have to put for emergency services or something like that, and it included everybody. Once it passed, we turned around and approved a resolution that earmarked those funds to go to the police department, only to the police department. So does that play into this at all?
I don't recall advising that you had to.
There was no case law to support a more specific.
Yeah, so you had room to pass an additional property tax, but you did not have a specific statute that authorized a law enforcement specific real estate tax. And so you had options, how you want to describe it. The question I think that I addressed at the time that you might be referencing is that I don't think I couldn't guarantee that that a future board couldn't use it for other purposes if you just said law enforcement, or depending on the ballot language. There's an argument that that's binding upon future boards, but there's also an argument that it wouldn't be because it's under the general tax authority, and the purpose described may not be limiting on what the city would do. So I think the way you described it, I don't know that I said you couldn't do that.
Well, I mean,
but the decision, as I recall it, was that the board decided to have a rather broad language so as not to tie your hands. That would unnecessarily require a specific amount to a specific purpose. That's what I recall. But
didn't we come back right after it passed with the resolutions and ordinance? So,
yes.
I'm just worried. I agree with everything you said and all this, but does that ordinance come into play when we're talking about reducing one for the other, when that's earmarked for the police department through ordinance? and it's not marked, you know, to the ambulance or fire or any other services. It's earmarked for the police department. So I just want to make sure that ordinance doesn't conflict with what we're trying to do here.
You could rescind the ordinance.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm bringing it up. Do we need to, or, I mean,
We don't need, I mean, this is all, looking at it as to what our plan of action might be come April. So that would be just one of the things we'd have to look at.
yeah.
And you wouldn't, I mean, you have two levies, the general levy and then you have the Prop P levy.
Yeah.
Right? So you could roll back the general levy. So you don't, just because you are authorized to impose a real estate tax or property tax up to this level that you can do, you don't have to do the maximum allowable. I have had one city that decided to do it slightly less because they want to get some money back to the citizens. So it's rare though. It's like, the city attorneys talk about it because it's so rare that they do about, but voluntary rollback and the next year you bounce it up. It's not it doesn't affect your Hancock limits and those kind of mandatory rollbacks over time. But you don't have to do a rollback of Prop P. You have two real estate taxes that are essentially general fund type taxes. And I would, you know, so you could do it a different way. Because you have one and then you have another one that brought you up to the maximum amount allowed at the time.
Think about that, yeah.
Well,
I mean, they're treated the same really legally, but.
certainly the one that spearheaded the Prop P thing and did 100% of the campaigning on it. But my only intention was to get the officers the equipment and the salary they needed. If we have means of doing that by some other means, I am the least biggest fan of a property tax and wish we could throw it all away and just fund them ourselves and not impose a tax. So if anybody's afraid of dancing around how I'm going to feel about that, which I don't know that they are, I'm not opposed to rolling back completely if we can fund what we promised the police department or the, you know, as long as they're not seeing any reduction in salary or equipment because of this. I had no heartburn with getting rid of it altogether. And I certainly want the fire department's venture to be successful and see that. I mean, I think that's ultimately going to benefit the city and all of the residents. So,
Well, and that was part of the committee's, you know, thoughts on that is basically if we could give the taxpayer something back and then ask for something relatively the same, then marketing it and getting it passed would be much easier. But the implications of the fire district, you know, where that really comes into play is the additional funding we can get from that to better further our fire department with more equipment and better equipment and more updated. That's the real key to the fire district. So, you know, however we go about it, I mean, as long as we're not taking from one to give to the other and this $16,000 difference, hopefully we can make that up pretty simply.
It wouldn't be a difference. I mean, you just, if we want to roll back on that $191,000 that we're spending on the fire department now.
Right, and I don't know what the implications are rolling back or eliminating. I don't know the legal ramifications, but I mean, whichever is the,
You would want to roll it back, because if you eliminate it, then you have to then go back out for the vote to get it back again. If
to
you're
the
the one
public.
to use it.
Yeah, I would, it'd be easier to roll it back.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think one of the things that we can, with the police department now, with all salaries, they're on a salary scale. So we have that locked in. So I think we're in better shape on that than we've been in the past.
I was busy throwing stuff into the middle of the floor when this all started, but if Joe Steiger spoke to it, Alderman Steiger spoke to it, like if we no longer assess that tax that fills in that $191,000 line item in the budget, I mean, Prop P then just becomes its own discussion aside from this discussion. Those two are not interrelated, right? Am I wrong about that?
Say that again.
there's not a tax that specifically generates 191 for the fire department. It's just the general revenue. We expend that much on the fire department now. There's not.
So what would be the vehicle? I think that's helpful. What would be the vehicle to return that money to the taxpayer, so then they can be assessed from the district
When
tax.
you're setting your levy in the fall for the next year's
Okay.
real estate taxes, you can do the math
And factor that in.
and factor out,
Okay.
based upon this levy, this much lower than what our allowed levy is. If you lower this small percentage amount, it'll reduce, are expected to reduce the tax revenue in the amount of 191,000. I mean, you can get down to decimals pretty close, so that would be the mechanism.
And given that Prop P is a different discussion, then that's not intertwined
We could
with.
do either one. We could do one.
Yeah.
I would not conflate the Prop P
Yeah.
with this discussion. This is general revenue levy discussions.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to do that, you're applying it to the general levy, which has been in place well before Prop P, which has funded the fire department in part, as well as all the other city functions since the fire department was established and the tax was in place.
I think what I'm looking for is a non-binding resolution that says the city will roll back their levy next year to reduce city residents' taxes by 191,000, so that when they get assessed, if the fire district goes through, when they get assessed that new tax, that it'd be a wash for city residents.
Also in favor of that, yeah.
Right.
Well, whether it's for that,
I don't think that's not.
Not gonna be. No, it's not gonna be.
well, you're right. As long as we pull back to 191. So you're right. I misspoke by saying it that way. It won't be, because what they get assessed through the new fire district might be less, might be more. That 30 cents per $100 might be different. Depends on what your value of your property is worth. So yes, won't be a wash, but at least the city is doing their part to eliminate any of the taxes that we use to
Right.
fund the city fire department.
I think if we had a shortage of projects, though, that would be more appealing to roll back that 191. It's not like we have a plethora of money in our coffers that my understanding, the benefit to the fire department going to a district was that was not going to be a draw on that general election or general fund anymore, and that the city would have some money to then complete some of the projects and pay some of the other debts that we have. So if we're pledging to not collect any of that, then I don't see where this benefits us having a fire district. I know it benefits the fire department, but I mean, when it was first presented to us, it was going to be a benefit because that was no longer $191,000 that was going to come out of the city's budget. But if we're saying that we're going to get rid of that $191,000, it's not like we have a surplus of $191,000 a year.
Right.
To get rid of. I mean, we have projects that could use that money. So I think we need to be careful. And again, I would love to roll back everything to the citizens and have no tax, but I mean, we are a tax funded agency. Like we thrive on taxes or exist because of taxes. And I mean, I don't love it any more than anybody else, but I don't see a ton of retail coming in here to knock down our doors and put in business. So I would be careful.
I agree with you, Eric, but we've got to get there. And if we don't get there, then it's for nothing. Like we're not able to discuss it anymore. So enticing a taxpayer to vote yes for that district, I think that's where this discussion comes into play.
I don't feel comfortable asking my residents to vote yes on the fire district if we don't roll back. I don't want to put another tax on city residents. And we'll just have to figure out, we'll just continue.
Well, I think the distinction is we are not asking that. The fire department is asking.
Okay.
We are in a sense the fire department, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I see what you're saying. Like the purpose in living in the city is to have the services, the water services, the police services, the fire services. And if that is not part of our anymore, there should be some relief to the taxes that they're paying.
But they're still getting fire protection.
But there's
right?
still
So,
fire protection.
and they're going to be charged for it.
Right.
So we're keeping the money that we were charging for fire protection in the city, and now they're getting charged at the fire district level. So we're still taxing them for fire services that they're no longer getting from us. So I just feel like it's a double tax, and I can't
See that.
approve that or recommend that to anybody to keep that tax level. We'll continue with the projects that we have, at the funding that we have. And it'll be, in my mind, it'll be a wash that, you know, it will keep our budget the way it is, and the shortages that we have in different areas where we want to do different projects, we're just gonna have to find a different way. But I'm not gonna take it off the back of the citizens for something that I'm not gonna double tax them for a fire district. I just don't think that's the right thing to do.
You know, when you talk about fire district, whether we want to,
And the reason why, and I'm sorry, Bob, but
Go ahead.
when you start looking at the vehicles that we start having to replace, this fire district might not even have enough to do that. We're so far behind in the city now with trying to fund these future vehicle purchases that we're going to have. We've really screwed over the fire department and the city residents, because in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we would be going to the residents and asking for another tax raise to get another $500,000 fire truck, $1 million fire truck, you know, so we might be short $190,000, but we're really going to be short in a couple more years. So I can't see how keeping this tax and losing the opportunity of having fire district to finally get the residents and the corporations that aren't paying their fair share now, where we'll be, what the fire department will look like in a couple of years. We've got to do something to get this fire district created, because right now the city is going to be in dire straits in 2, 3, 4, 5 years when one of these vehicles go down and the second one goes down right after that. Prop P will look like nothing that we're going to have to when we go try to get a couple fire trucks in the next 5 years.
you know, the next truck up we priced, 2 years ago was 800,000. Now it's $1.4 million. You know, where are we going to get the money to buy those type of things? And that's, I mean, however you look at the fire department, those are key to providing necessary services that we are required by law to provide as a fire department. You know, the trend of the fire district is definitely up and coming. It's happening everywhere. The county's doing it.
It's no longer a trend. I mean,
Pardon me?
it's no longer a trend. It's the
No,
norm.
it's life or death. But
We have so many corporate entities and larger property owners that are paying for 1 fire tag, 2 fire tags, and they're unfortunately they're not paying their, and they don't have a choice. That's just the way the system's set up. So it's not like they're trying to cheat the system. It's just, it's not equitable for everybody in what the fire district and that those boundary lines will be. And so we've got to start charging people for their fair share of fire services. And I don't think we should double tax the city residents for that service twice. Even, and then pull that 190 grand out and put it for another use. I would love to, if I thought this fire district would pass and we could keep the 190 grand in the city coffers, because we do have projects that we need to spend it on, but I just don't think that's the right thing to do. And if it loses a few votes because people are like, I don't want to be taxed twice for fire protection, you know, the city needs to cut their taxes so that I can potentially vote for the creation of this new fire district, so that my taxes will somewhat even out in some place. Some people might actually pay less, but other people will probably end up paying a little bit more. But that's my logic behind this, is that the city doesn't have the money coming forward. This fire district is a godsend to potentially keep a really good fire department protecting the city and the fire district as a whole. I'm sorry, Prince, I cut you off.
No, you finished, or you carried on with what I was gonna say.
you know, we have in the St. Genevieve County, there's 7 different fire departments or associations and stuff. And not speaking for the county and stuff, but there's departments in there that are in dire need. I mean, very dire need financially if this countywide district doesn't go through. What Joe spoke about earlier, a couple of years down the road, we're going to be in the same boat. I mean, I know there's people thinks we should buy used stuff, buy somebody else's problems and stuff, and cut our expenses. I don't even know if we can do that. You know, $500,000, $400,000 for a used vehicle. Where's it coming from? So, however we get there, we have to get there, plain and simple. It's the trend. It's happening everywhere around us. There's departments going to districts and stuff for the simple thing of funding.
If you recall, the county did a similar sort of structure when they went to the voters for the water park. they rolled back a property tax and scaled up a sales tax to try, to more or less help with the passage of that. And that, I mean, that obviously worked, and I think, but it is something to consider. I think that was very helpful in getting that passed. And those two things probably did not equal out. We can probably agree on that, right? A rollback on a property tax and then the addition of a sales tax. No way those two things are going to ever level out, but it's a little bit of give and take, I guess. And that's the presentation I think you're presenting to the voters. Just food for thought.
You want to see that they've got something and skin in the game, and I think that voters will want to see that the city's got something, that we think it's that important that we're willing to roll back some of our taxes because we know the fire department is going to be in dire straits in the next few years. So the city is willing potentially to roll back their levy so that the fire district can be created, be passed, and that they can fund these new fire apparatuses when the time comes for them.
And there's nothing that says that you couldn't roll it back for a few years and then ramp it up down the line again. Correct, Mark?
Yeah,
I mean, you could roll it back in 2025 and 2026 and then.
The current board cannot, obligate the board to not increase that tax should a future board the next year decide to go up to the maximum allowed levy.
So it's not as if you make the decision for this year that dies cast and there's nothing that anybody can do about it in the future.
No, like I said,
Other than eliminating the Prop P, which obviously I don't think that that's in anybody's best interest to do at this time.
So talking in those terms, if we do a rollback rather than, go into the voters and stuff, so is that a decision by this board then to change it?
It'll be a decision by the board that is in place at the time the levy is set each year. So it's you cannot force that decision now. You can pass a resolution of an intent, and then if you don't follow through, it's a political, not a legal problem.
So is that something, if we decide to go back with it, we have to go back as it originally was, or could we stair step it in?
Yeah, you could, yes, yeah, you could do whatever you want within the lawfully authorized tax. Pursuant to amendment, forced rollbacks, of reassessment, yeah. You just can't go over that. You can always do less.
So in the interest of time and discussion, where do you want us to get to tonight, Happy? What was your goal?
My goal is to bring it to the work session.
Well,
After
were you
that,
wanting?
If this board wants a resolution, then we'll come up with a resolution. I know that the idea is to get on board with what's going on with the fire district, and since that's been approved now by the judge. So if that's what the
Mayor, I'd
majority
ask
of this
I'd
group
ask for
wants
a
to
resolution at the next meeting. I'd ask for a resolution to be drafted for the next meeting, the non-binding resolution that says that we were willing to roll back our levy to the amount of about $191,000, the current fire department budget.
Should the bond pass.
Should the bond pass.
This is the intent of the city.
Yeah,
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, and then you can discuss it in the next meeting. You're not making a decision today. You have plenty of time to think about it between now and then. And again, between Happy and myself, I'm sure you can come up with something. I've done something similar to that in other city, but you put in some whereases.
Not too many whereases.
No, but you want to lay it out.
Henceforth.
Why are we doing this?
Why you're doing it, what the purpose behind it. And then, like I said, it's not binding, but it is a specific written intent, and then the people are going to expect you to follow through with it. It's not going to be a legal obligation.
But a political obligation.
Yeah, that's
Right, and you will have a change in some of the board members.
Yeah, some are quitters.
Out of here.
Yeah.
Pam, could you reflect that in a minute?
I have a letter of resignation, right? If you'd like that.
We'll have legal look it over. Okay, are we satisfied? Do we need to do a voice vote on that? To bring the
Well, I mean-
resolution, we could just draft it and then vote on it at that time.
I think we got enough
Is
consensus.
everybody, did anybody have any other lingering thoughts on the topic they'd like to discuss right now? Okay, good discussion. Move down to work session agenda item number 2. This is asset agreement with the potential fire districts. So once again, setting the stage for if when hopefully this is approved. And the closure of the meeting, if it is really only as it pertains to real estate. And it would be based on that discussion. So the majority of this discussion should probably take place in open session.
Yeah, and it's permissive, you don't have to go into closed session. I would say, anything that you decide before the district is actually created is, you're not gonna be able to enter into any binding agreement because it doesn't exist yet. But you can certainly, discuss, what your thoughts are and it'd be a good idea to plan ahead of time.
I think that we should lease the equipment to them for $191,000. I'm kidding.
You were shooting low, what do you like?
191,263.
I was just gonna go for the difference, 16,000.
So the question is, the equipment that they obviously have at the fire department and the fire department itself and the land that the fire department is on. What is the intention of the board? Do you want to, are we just going to give, donate, lease, rent it?
I would be more inclined to leasing the property at least. I mean, the real estate.
Yeah. I mean, it could be $1 a year, but
Right.
it would stay in the name of the city.
Right.
But responsibility of, are we gonna go and clean since we've had a snow, are we gonna go clean the parking lot? Are we gonna be responsible for what happens if the roof starts leaking? If there's an electrical issue? What kind of responsibility does the city want to have on that? Or is it, we'll lease it to you with the
I think
understanding
like triple
that
net lease and, it's on them and,
you're fully responsible for
yeah, I mean, that's,
taking care of
I
it?
mean, they'll have a budget to take care of this type of thing.
Right.
So,
So is there one benefit over the other, at least to giving? I mean, what about as far as liability? If we lease the property to them and somebody trips and falls out there, are we still liable? Do we have to insure it then?
We
Or?
already do insure it, so it wouldn't change any. It wouldn't change our amount wouldn't change at all because we already do that. So it would just be keeping them under our umbrella, but they would have to have their own insurance as well.
Yeah, and
Through the district.
If you're gonna lease it, I would recommend that you have in the agreement that they indemnify the city for those types of claims and that they have insurance coverage for those types of claims. And just like you would as any landlord, and especially if you're gonna be doing it a $1 lease, they should be required to do all maintenance and snow removal and all that liability. Generally, and that's for since it's attorney talking, you all can decide what you want to do, but that can certainly be drafted in the document, and then the benefit of leasing is you still retain some control over it for future use. And so you still have that asset available if you need it in the future. And you also,
would that even help us with valuation and bonding and things like that? If that would still be on our books, it might even help us with that if we would.
yeah, I don't know if that would make that big of a difference for the valuation of the entire city assets, but it would also help keep a firehouse at that location, because then the fire district would not have the ability to sell that and buy a different property, maybe outside the city or something like that. I mean, you could still move, but it might be cost prohibitive if they didn't have that as an asset to sell and use towards a purchase somewhere else. So in that sense, it also benefits the city to retain ownership of it and to lease it at next to nothing to encourage the fire district to maintain that location within the city.
I don't know if anybody from the fire department could answer this, but I mean, has there been a precedent set in previous districts that says it's one way over the other, or?
I can't say 100% for sure. I don't know. I know part of the reason that I asked the committee to look into this was that in the city of Leadwood, they had a municipal department and the board agreed to turn everything over. And then once the election happened, the board changed and all of a sudden Leadwood Fire District was left without any equipment at all. So they had to start from scratch. And it was real iffy as far as the actual fire protection because they didn't have equipment, they didn't have a building. So they had to work out something where they actually had to lease it from the city, and which put them way behind in any future purchasing and keeping equipment updated and things like that to start with. So I can't say 100% for sure because I honestly don't know, but I know of that case being kind of prohibitive to the well-being of the district. Does that? I know it's not a good answer, but that's the best I can tell you.
Everything to the district rather than retaining ownership.
I think it would be a benefit. It makes it a lot easier as if you start off, I kind of like your idea of leasing it, but then you start off with a $200,000 debt and the anticipated budget for this district would only be at the time being about $521,000. So if you do a $200,000 lease,
leasing the real estate.
Yeah.
For $1 a year or whatever. There's no debt that you're incurring there.
Yeah, that would be
Just gifting them the property or whatever the case may be. But
I can't speak for the board because it's not elected yet, but I wouldn't think they would have a problem with that. The people that we have that are willing to be the board members.
like he said, in 20 years, if you guys want to move out to the county or something, then at least we still have the property and
Speaking of the fire chief and knowing the population, how it's laid out, I don't foresee any time in the near future where there would be a reason to do that. The reason the firehouse is at its best location now is because it's the center of population and the potential way that we're going to be growing as a city is west. So to move it anywhere else would be taking it out of the center part of it. And a lot of our people live within 6 or 8 blocks of that. So you'd be moving away from the people that would be responding to the firehouse to take calls.
but again, 20 years can change a lot of things. So
Yeah.
What? So we give them all the trucks, equipment, radios, air packs out here, and then we retain just the building itself or the property.
Well, wouldn't we lease all the equipment until its end of life happens and then it declared?
what's the benefit to us to
Yeah.
keep any of that?
The vehicles are a little bit more problematic, you have different liability issues. Political subdivision owning vehicles because there's some exceptions to sovereign immunity with regard to vehicle liability that you wouldn't have in the city of Fall, which is pretty rare. Or other liability with regard to real estate. So, and those assets depreciate so quickly, depending on which assets you're talking about. I mean, as you mentioned, fire trucks are very valuable. So,
At least when you buy it. That's when they start falling off pretty fast. 1.4 million is the next truck.
Yeah,
And
but when you sell that truck, you don't get much for it when you sell it. So
no, you're looking at for our 1993, our 33-year-old truck here shortly is only going to give you maybe 50, 60,000 on open market if you were to sell that. And just another tidbit of upcoming equipment. In 2015, we got a SCBA grant, replaced all of our SCBAs. Those have a life expectancy of 15 years. So we're rolling up on 10 years already. So within 5 years, we're going to be looking at a total redo of 28 air packs at about $10,000 an air pack too. So there's potential of some major expenses coming up in the next few years. And if the district doesn't go through, then we're looking at having to get a fire truck pretty quick. Because NFPA that sets the standards for fire departments say a fire truck should only be first line service for 15 years, reserve status for 5, and then gone. In 2026, I'll only have 2 trucks less than 20 years old.
my brush truck, that's a 22, and my ladder truck, that's a 19. Everything else would be 20-plus years old. So according to their standard, it should be gone already. And a couple of trucks I'm using now should already be gone according to the standards that we're supposed to be held to. But we keep them in good shape, we keep them running, and do what we can with them. That's why they've lasted as long as we have lasted.
You on this, Mayor?
Well, that's what I
This
was
one
gonna
has a
say.
lot more moving parts.
Yeah.
For how you want to dispose of the, and I don't know what the expected, tax revenue would be for the new district.
You have a number on
Do you
that?
have a number?
Right now, there's some, about 60, I think it was about 65,000. It's going to be held in escrow because of some challenges to the taxes. But the anticipated budget would be about 526,
Only 526.
526 per year within our coverage area, the city and our rural area, estimated 526.
That includes the 65 or that doesn't? include-
That does not include the 65. They're estimating about I think it was 592 or so with the money that's being held in escrow. So they're holding 60 or 70,000 in escrow because of a few major tax
Yeah.
things that are going right now.
That difference in the 191 figure is where we afford to buy equipment and upgrade, and so,
You can service debt on a new truck too.
yeah.
So tonight, are we looking for a similar sort of outcome from this conversation?
I don't know I think it's something to think about. We don't have to commit like we would trying to present this to the public.
Okay.
But I think it's important that the public know that we are in support and this is how we're going to try to move forward with it. If we're going to suddenly charge them, $100,000 a month for all the equipment, I mean, it doesn't work.
We're pretty confident that we're going to do a lease on the real
Seems to
property,
be, yeah.
and we'll come up with a solution for personal property.
Yeah, the equipment in that, I don't see a use for it. We can't really use a fire
Yeah.
truck for the
Well,
street department.
if we lease it to them or gift it to them, I mean, maybe we can have.
Is there a problem with gifting?
Yeah.
Since the city would sell it.
Kenny, the attorney working for both the city and county on the fire district and stuff, has basically almost done this as a career. Can we get an opinion from them, on the lease and giving away to see what has been
Yeah.
done and stuff like that, and just see if there's any hidden liabilities
Yeah,
or the other?
I should be able to have that within a week.
If there's a playbook out there for other municipalities that may have gone through
Right.
this.
Yeah, they've done a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make contact, or have Felix. Felix is my liaison to the legal right now. He can make contact and get a couple of opinions on some of the past history of some of the other districts. Yeah, I can have that for the next meeting.
More or less in agreement though on the real estate that we're probably trending towards a lease. So, okay, fair.
That's my recommendation.
And then we'll revisit the personal property, we'll call it personal property, I guess, equipment, once we get a little more information.
On that lease though, would that be like a 99-year lease for X amount? Because you said something about we can't bind other boards, or how do we make that more solid so that it can't be turned around?
Expenditure.
I would say it's a renewal. It'd be an automatic renewal unless somebody wants to change the lease amount, which would probably be initiated by our side. If we say we're leasing it for $1 a year and we decide, we want to charge you $12,000 a month.
Well, I mean,
Not that I had that number in my head.
There's gonna be a termination provision in the lease.
so we could theoretically sign or agree or sign to a 99-year lease, but it would.
There won't be 1 year, there won't be a 99 year.
Well, I mean, whatever. But I mean, that would still be voted on every year, or?
You can have an automatic renewal, and let it ride. I mean, if I'm hesitating because, as far as legal advice to my client, generally don't like to do it in an open session. But I will say this, if the city is essentially providing terms financially that are extremely favorable to the other side, the city ought to reserve a right to end it.
I was looking more of a way to protect and ensure the new fire board that we have their best interests kind of taken care of there and not, that's not going to just be pulled out from underneath them.
That's the concern for the fire district elected officials. It's not my concern. As an attorney for the city. Well, I mean, I understand what you're saying. As an attorney for the city, it's not my concern. But I'll do whatever the client directs me to do.
Good. Everybody good to move into the next topic when revisiting this when the time comes?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think there's pretty good consensus on the real estate, and we'll revisit the other stuff.
Because this will be, again, an agreement with the fire district coming up, so it'll be up for discussion again anyway.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Work session agenda item number 3. This is the discussion regarding the development agreement with McBride.
Closed session.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
For real estate.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. You guys move into closed session. Pam, would you do a roll call, please?
Alderwoman Dobbs. Alderman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Bennett.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman. Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Prince.
Yes.
Alderman Steiger. Motion carries 7:34.
Any other matters to discuss right now? No, sir. Okay, we will adjourn. Thank you all. Long night. Good job.
I got everything else was sent.